At least 3 million young people aged 15 to 24 are out of school, unemployed, or not receiving work training. And with the impact of the coronavirus pandemic on the economy, those numbers don't look like they'll be getting better anytime soon. Our reporters have been unpacking the latest stats for us. Ayesha Ismail joins us live from Cape Town. Heidi Giokos is in Johannesburg. Heidi, we'll start with you. I mean, the numbers are quite shocking and scaring. The reality is that we even have people who go to university, get their qualifications, but they're still struggling to find jobs.
Yes, and I think this is what's truly alarming for graduates, because you have a situation where you have the majority of the youth in this country unemployed. I think these numbers, we have never seen numbers like this, where over 60% of the youth are sitting at home either looking for jobs, or some of them are completely discouraged. And some experts that we have spoken to have highlighted the fact that, the big question arises, what actually happens when somebody, for example, studies course A, but actually the country needs people to have qualifications in course B or a degree in course B. What happens there? Is there a disconnect between what graduates are actually coming out of university versus the demands and the needs of the job market? And there does seem to be some kind of disconnect. However, you cannot force people to study, for example, engineering. The other big issue is the fact that a lot of it weighs on what happens in basic education. So how well are we educating those that are still in school when it comes to mathematics and science, because we need those critical skills moving into the job market because the demand is there. So there's definitely a disconnect, but when we got a chance to speak to universities SA CEO, the disconnect is there, but there's not much that they can do, and government needs to find a way to create sustainable jobs and to try and put a dent in the youth unemployment rate, because the picture is very worrying moving forward. Let's listen to the university's SA CEO.
Clearly, there appears to be a shortage of people in the, engineering sector, in the IT sector, and so on. And on the other hand, it might well be that we are producing too many graduates in areas where kind of a faltering economy, if you like, they won't absorb. So generally speaking, people with good BAs get absorbed because there's a lot of job opportunities in the, for example, in the area of advertising and so on. So it's very likely, in fact, that what we have is a mixture of the two. That on the one hand, the economy is simply not producing enough jobs. But on the other hand, that maybe there's a mismatch between what universities are producing at least in terms of graduates, and what the labor market needs.
Heidi, it doesn't stop there, right? Because there are courses where you have to do an internship in order to actually get your national diploma or degree. There's a shortage of work experience currently in the country, and that means if you don't get that done, you can't be hired anyway.
Yes, exactly, Shahan, and I think almost every single graduate goes through this and experiences this, where there might be jobs available, but when you apply for it, you need 5 years experience, sometimes 10 years experience, and where you're supposed to get that kind of experience or the necessary skills for that particular job if you've just graduated. And this is a major problem that many graduates, thousands, face in this country, because they want to apply for the job, they studied engineering or whatever it might be, IT, but they don't have the experience for this. And this is where the private sector and government needs to come in and try and assist to say, okay, we understand that you might not have the experience and you might not have the skills as yet, but perhaps a chance should just be given to try and put a dent in this youth unemployment that we are facing now. It's not their fault that they don't have the experience. They've just graduated. Most universities universities don't provide the necessary training. Yes, you might do practicals, but that is not sufficient enough for you to be able to be ready to move into the job market or to qualify for specific jobs. And this is why the Human Science Research Council has referred to this as a huge problem that thousands of graduates face at the moment. And that was also, Shahan, exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic, because a lot came to a standstill then, and that's why you're seeing more and more graduates saying we are so desperate for job opportunities. Give us the job opportunity, we'll get the experience, but as long as we can get our foot in the door and just try and break into the job market. Let's listen to the Human Science Research Council on that.
And ideally they want people with 5 or 10 years experience who really know and can start doing the job on day one, right? Rather than having to spend a year or two learning how to do the job. So that's a really big issue, and it's a universal problem around the world, right? It's exacerbated in South Africa because we have a shortage of jobs. So employers can pick and choose who they take, and they can leave graduates without any experience, pass them by in favor of those with experience. So one way of addressing this is to encourage universities, colleges, and even schools to find employers who will offer work placements. All right, it may be a week, it may be a month, ideally a bit longer than that, 3 months of a work placement during their studies to give them direct exposure and to give them some practical experience. And perhaps if they're doing that during the course, they may then have a period of work experience during the vacation, and they can build upon these temporary periods of work experience.
Ayesha, let's go to you in Cape Town. Of course, we know that the youth are bearing the brunt of joblessness in this country. You've spoken to some young people today. What are they telling you about their situations?
Well, the people that I spoke to said that they were increasingly feeling disappointed, despondent, and depressed, actually. They say it's very hard for them to cope with the constant rejection of their job applications. But what they're saying is that they're not lazy. They want to work because they too want to contribute to growing the South African economy. And all they're asking for is for an opportunity to gain experience so that they can join the active workforce. But Shahan, I put together a package, so let's listen to what some of the young people had to say to me earlier today. Young people are crying for help, begging for job opportunities. How else will we get the required work experience if nobody wants to employ us, they ask.
A lot of people, they become depressed because they don't find work, and then others, they tend to commit suicide, more especially young males, because they have pressure from their families, they have kids, they have everything. So now the whole pressure becomes a burden in their shoulders. So now they're like, okay, the only solution that I have, let me take my life.
Msutu holds degrees in biotech and project management, but has not been able to find a permanent job yet. What is the problem?
When we do those surveys and work with those people, we see that they're much more frustrated of how are they going to get employment, because they get rejected each and every day by the system.
Youth unemployment doesn't just happen overnight when young people leave school or drop out of school and start looking for work. It's really the result of systemic challenges that dot the journey of young people since they start grade 1.
Our labs provides an opportunity for young people to feel empowered by offering learnership programs.
If you have them on a program that teaches them to fulfill real work tasks, that improves the employability, the chances of actually getting a job.
I've been looking for work more than 6 months, and since I have a background in electrical engineering, I've been looking for work in that field.
No, I haven't been successful in any job applications, and the field that I would have liked to work in was horticulture and agricultural landscaping.
I've sent out about 5 to 10 and neither got back to me.
These young people say they do not want handouts. They want to work to help grow the economy and better their lives. Ayesha Ismail, Cape Town.